The air in Wembley Stadium was thick with anticipation. The year was 1986, and Queen was at the peak of their power, delivering a performance for the ages. The stage was an island of light in a sea of darkness, and at its center, Freddie Mercury commanded the night. He was more than a singer. He was a god, a force of nature, a showman without equal. The crowd was a single, breathing entity, hanging on his every move, every note. John Deacon's bass line for Another One Bites the Dust throbbed through the stadium floorboards, a heartbeat in sync with the tens of thousands of people present. Brian May's guitar wailed like a banshee, and Roger Taylor's drums were a thunderous echo of the crowd's fervor. They were a machine of rock and roll perfection. But tonight, something unexpected was about to happen, something that would break the script and create a moment that would be whispered about for decades. In the crowd, a young man named Liam stood, his heart pounding in his chest. He was just 19, a boy from a small town who had saved every penny for a year to be here. Queen wasn't just a band to him. They were an escape, a lifeline. Their music had been the soundtrack to his lonely nights and his wildest dreams. He knew every lyric, every guitar riff, every drum fill by heart. He had fantasized about this moment his entire life, about being.
As the band transitioned from the final, searing notes of Another One Bites the Dust into the iconic, thundering intro of We Will Rock You, the crowd erupted. The clapping and stomping were deafening, a tribal rhythm that shook the very ground. This was it, the moment everyone had been waiting for. Suddenly, an impulse took over Liam. It was a crazy, irrational thought, but it felt like the only thing he could do. He looked at the stage, at Freddie, who was raising his fist to the rhythm, his eyes closed, lost in the music. It was now or never. He pushed past the people around him, a blur of motion fueled by a singular obsession. Security guards were a distant blur. He vaulted over a low barrier, then another, his feet barely touching the ground. He was running on pure adrenaline and the wild, impossible hope of a fan's ultimate dream. He made it past the final security check, a bewildered guard too slow to react to the sheer audacity of his move. He was on the ramp leading to the stage. His legs felt like they were made of lead, but he pushed on. He saw the band in the distance, tiny figures magnified by the giant screens. He was so close. The roar of the crowd was a physical force, and he could feel the vibrations of the music in his very bones.
Finally, he reached the edge of the stage. He clambered up, his hands scrabbling for a foothold, and pulled himself over the lip, collapsing onto the platform, breathless. He was here. He was on the same stage as Queen. He looked up, and there he was, Freddie Mercury. The music stopped. The thunderous rhythm of We Will Rock You died, replaced by a sudden, stunned silence. The crowd, which had been stomping and clapping in perfect unison, went completely still. It was a silence so profound you could almost hear a pin drop. All 80,000 pairs of eyes turned to the stage, to the figure of a young man kneeling by the drum riser, and to
Security guards, alerted to the breach, were already running toward the stage from the wings. Liam froze,
his heart hammering against his ribs. He had broken the rules. He had interrupted the show. He was going to be thrown out, maybe even arrested. The dream had become a nightmare. Freddie, however, hadn't moved. He stood at the front of the stage, his microphone held loosely in his hand, a look of surprise on his face. He watched as the security guards advanced, their faces grim. The tension was palpable. The crowd waited, holding its collective breath to see how the legendary showman would.
But Freddie held up a hand, a simple, elegant gesture that stopped the guards in their tracks. He then slowly walked over to Liam. The young man, still on his knees, looked up, a mix of terror and awe in his eyes. He expected a reprimand, a stern word, a command for him to leave. Instead, Freddie extended a hand and helped Liam to his feet. He smiled, a genuine warm smile that reached his eyes. "What's your name, love?" he asked, his voice calm and melodic. "Liam," the young man stammered, his mind reeling. Freddie looked out at the silent crowd, then back at Liam. He held the microphone out. "Liam wants to sing," he announced.
A wave of confused whispers rippled through the stadium. The security guards looked on, bewildered. No one, not even the band, knew what was happening. This was completely unprecedented. Freddie walked Liam to the center of the stage, the spotlight following their every move. The young man's hands were trembling. His legs felt like jelly. He was standing next to Freddie Mercury in front of 80,000 people. He was living a dream and a nightmare at the same time. Freddie said, leaning in conspiratorially, "You know the words, don't you?" Liam nodded, his throat tight. He knew them better than he knew his own name. "Good," Freddie said with a wink, "because we're going to do this one together, and you're going to sing the whole damn—"
He looked at Brian May, who was standing with his guitar, a surprised look on his face. Freddie gave him a small nod, a signal that this was real, that they were going with it. Brian, ever the professional, grinned and launched into the iconic opening guitar riff. The first thunderous stomp and clap of "We Will Rock You" filled the stadium again, louder and more powerful than before. This time, the crowd joined in with a newfound intensity, a unified roar of approval and disbelief. They were witnessing a moment of pure, spontaneous magic, a testament to Freddie Mercury's incredible showmanship.
Freddie passed the microphone to Liam, who held it like a sacred artifact. His trembling hands were now steady, replaced by a surge of pure, unadulterated joy. He looked at Freddie, who was smiling at him, encouraging him. The first verse began, and Liam, with Freddie's support, took a deep breath and belted out the lyrics. His voice, shaky at first, grew in confidence with each line. "Buddy, you're a boy, make a big noise. Playing in the street, gonna be a big man someday." Freddie sang along with him, their voices blending in a perfect harmony. The crowd, now fully on board, stomped and clapped in time, a rhythmic tidal wave of sound. Liam felt a surge of energy he had never experienced before. He was no longer just a fan, he was part of the show. As they reached the chorus, Freddie put an arm around Liam's shoulder.
and pulled him close. They sang the legendary lines together, their voices echoing across the stadium. We will rock you. We will rock you. It wasn't a perfect performance. Liam missed a beat here and there, his voice cracked from emotion, but it didn't matter. What mattered was the raw, emotional power of the moment. It was a gift from a rock god to a devoted fan. A fleeting second of connection that transcended the stage, the security barriers, and the stadium itself. As the song ended, the crowd erupted in a roar of applause, a sound that shook the very foundations of Wembley. It wasn't just for Queen, it was for Liam. It was for the incredible gesture of kindness and inclusion that Freddie Mercury had shown. Freddie leaned into the microphone. That, he said, was a legend in the making. Give it up for Liam.
Liam, tears streaming down his face, couldn't speak. He could only nod, a profound sense of gratitude and disbelief washing over him. Freddie gave him a hug, a true warm embrace, and then gestured for him to leave the stage, a smile on his face. The security guards, who had been watching the entire spectacle with a mixture of awe and relief, now helped Liam down the steps, their faces no longer grim, but respectful. He was no longer a security threat. He was a guest of honor. As he was escorted back to his seat, the band launched into the next song, Radio Gaga. But for Liam, the night was already perfect. He had shared the stage with Freddie Mercury. He had lived the dream, and he knew in that moment that he had a story he would tell for the rest of his life. That was a story about the incredible connection between a performer and his audience. A story that reminds us that music is more than just notes and rhythms. It's about shared moments and human connection. If you want to see more stories about Freddie Mercury and Queen, be sure to like this video, leave a comment below sharing your favorite Queen song, and subscribe to the channel for more Untold stories.